Good evening, brothers and sisters. I'd like to take this opportunity to share the God's word. John 1, verses 1 to 9. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of man. The light shined in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. There came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning the light, so that through him all men might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. This is God's word.
Good evening, everyone. What a privilege to be able to share in tonight's 65th year, but also the memorial lecture for Dr. G.D. James. What a story, is it not? The man who influenced so much of what took place in evangelism, mission and theology in Asia, and continues to do so through AEFI and of course through Jonathan and his team. Now, two things I must say. One, for those who know me, Beverly is an apology. She was hoping to be here tonight, but she's really struggling with her knee. And those who know that kind of story, if you could pray for her, much appreciated. She's seeing a doctor again next week, but she really needs prayer in that regard. And the other thing that I need to say, which I wasn't going to say, is I kind of feel at home. Now, that's partly because I did an interim at Castle Hill Baptist Church for 2 years, which finished at the end of August. But it's also because I've had to, and I'm happy for the mic to be on and this recorded, I've had to spend this afternoon and today at a Baptist assembly. Now, if you go to Amos chapter 5, I think it is, you'll read that God hates assemblies. And I understand why. Why do I feel at home? Because, again, we are debating, not because the Assembly wants to, but because of certain two churches and what's going to happen to them with being disaffiliated from the association because their position on affirming same-sex marriage or same-sex. So here I am with a bunch of Baptists spending hours going through this again, saying no, getting the vote's passed, they're disaffiliated, and I just stand up and say, I've had enough. I mean, we've decided what we stand for, we've agreed to what we stand for, and if you want to change that, but bring a change through a motion to an assembly, but don't put us through this every time we meet. And so I've left that assembly totally frustrated about here we go again, here all our resources and time, debating something the majority of us don't want to debate at all, and I walk in here, and it's not even on the agenda. You're not even discussing it. Like the rest of Asia Pacific, did you know you can't join the Asia Pacific Baptist Federation unless you affirm marriage, biblical marriage between a male and a female? Did you know that's basically the position across all of Africa, all of South America? I'm sick and tired of white Europeans and a collection of Americans trying to tell us what to believe. I won't get it here, will I? And you've got to realise how refreshing this is to those of us involved in church ministry today. This is refreshing. Don't ever lose it. And remember, although sometimes Australia struggle with this, you are part of Asia. This is a ministry field as well. And maybe we need to be doing some more church planting or something here to actually make a statement about what is integrity and truth and what do we actually stand for. The lecture itself, I've been given some directions. Obviously, we love and honour Dr. James, but his son Jonathan, and this is a marvellous book, by the way. I'll be interacting with this as I go. One of the best contemporary books on global mission today and how you do it culturally. It's a classic. And Jonathan sent me an email and said, Ross, would you speak? And the topic is John 1:9. I like that. No mucking around. That's why the verse ended at John 1:9, because he told me the theme is John 1:9. And John 1:9, he says, is Jesus is the light of the nations. That's drawn from John 1:9. And could you focus your thoughts upon that? He also said I had 20 minutes. I don't know if the clock has started yet, but he says you have 20 minutes, and this is one of 2 or 3 or 4 lectures, so it is a lecture, being given across Asia, and what is said here will be fed into other parts of Asia. He also indicated to me, which I thought was quite interesting, you can do either theological reflection, you can do cultural engagement, or you can do personal testimony. It's up to you what you do in those 20 minutes. So I've decided, let's do all 3. Is that 20 minutes each for each one, or is that 20 minutes total? But that is what he said, and I really appreciate that direction. In other words, he said it could be more of a theological statement and lecture about what is happening in Asia and the work of groups like AEFI, or it could be your own story and testimony, or what is it saying in this book, for example, about cultural engagement. As we've heard, active in 11 nations, many shaped by a Buddhist, Muslim and Hindu world. I've been fortunate enough in a role I had with the Asia Pacific Baptist Federation as their president, so I know what Baptists are doing across Asia and the Pacific and the islands and the like. I've been fortunate enough, I was thinking about this, to actually preach in 15 plus churches in Asia, let alone the Pacific. So a number of the illustrations I will give is related to what I think the Asian church is saying to the Western world. And it's saying a lot. By the way, not perfectly, but saying something that needs to be heard. And Jonathan James points out there's a circle taking place. We're kind of coming back to where we were. So he points out, if you like, that Christianity began, if you like, in West Asia, the Middle East. We know that at West Asia. Christianity began there. And then, over the centuries, a lot of influences come through missions and evangelism, etc., into West Asia. So it begins in West Asia, and then reliance on the West, Europe and America and others, to bring the truth and the gospel and training and finances into that world. And now it's gone full circle, because now it's Asia speaking back to the West. Now it's Asia sending missionaries out into Mongolia and other parts of the world, and probably to Australia. Now it's Asia, full circle. West Asia, the West, Martin Luther, whoever, bringing the influence, the structure, the understanding, the gospel, and now Asia speaking back. And he gives a great illustration of that, which no doubt many of us would be aware, that he said if we lived in 1900, just remember, that's only 125 years ago, that's less than 2 lifetimes. So if we lived in 1900, less than 2 lifetimes ago, 82% of Christians lived in Europe and North America, 82%. But in 2020, only 33% of Christians live in Europe and in America. The change is global. Christianity is now represented in the global south. Christianity in the global south rose from 18% to 67%. So we're celebrating a movement of 65 years and honouring a man in the memorial lecture, not simply because he is ministering and God has called him to Asia, but because Asia is speaking back to the West. And Dr. James and AEFI is one of the best understandings and influences that can happen in that situation. An illustration of that, I've been at numerous conventions, including my own Baptist group, which I'm proud of, who have said, no, we've got to have a guest speaker for the next Baptist assembly or convention or whatever. And I mean, not being disrespectful, as you can imagine, every major American and European name comes up as who's got to be the guest speaker. And old Roscoe here says, well, how about someone from Myanmar or Singapore? Oh, good idea, Ross, but we couldn't do that because they wouldn't come, they don't know them. Well, make them known. Why are you keep on bringing white Europeans out here to address Australia? And then they would say things like, you'd be in academic circles, we need to hear more. Need to hear more from Asia. We need more Asian books and texts. But, you know, they can't get published and the academic popular stuff isn't published because it comes out mainly of America and Americans don't know them, so they don't publish them. So you say things like, well, I hear that, but here's an idea. You guys are great writers. You've got a lot of books out there. How about when you get your next contract for a book, you say to the publisher, this is wonderful. I'll sign this, provided when I hand you in the manuscript, you give a contract to someone from Asia. Oh, we couldn't do that. Why? Oh, it means that we might not get our contract. In other words, the West is very good at acknowledging that Asia is in many ways in the global south leading the theological debate and discussion and models of mission, but hopeless at listening. Because they still control resources and publishers and podcasts and, well, this ministry keeps telling its story, keeps working in ministry in Asia, and let me assure you, for people like myself, you are the voice that needs to be heard. John 1:9, Jesus is the true light who gives light to everyone, the light of the nations, who is coming and has come into the world. Now we understand that. Jesus is the light. He shines truth. He shines the gospel. He shines it into darkness. He liberates people from sin. He liberates people from tribal and other situations that are demonic and evil. He is the true light. He shows the way. But as we see with Dr. James, who is this Jesus? And so John 1 doesn't just tell us he is the light. Well, you know, Hindu gods have lights. Muhammad's a light. Even the Jewish, those today who would be open to Jesus, and some Islamic people would say, look, we can't go the full Monty with Jesus because that would make our scriptures, our prophets, subservient to him. But happy to have him in the mix, as long as he's not kind of standing out on his own. But John doesn't let us do that. He says, Jesus is the light. He is the true light. He shines truth into darkness. And who is he? And when you look at verses 1 and 2, this is what you see and this is what you hear as we gather tonight, as we prepare ourselves for ministry. Look at verse 1. There is no time when Jesus was not. No time when Jesus was not. No place where God resides where Jesus does not reside. No character or essence that God the Father has that Jesus has not. No mistake, says verse 2, he is God with us. So let me put it again. So when God was, the Word was. Where God was, Jesus was. What God looks like and is in character and nature, Jesus is. That's not inclusive, that's exclusive. There's not a variety of lights and torches. My wife and I are trying to find out what are the best lights to have on our ceiling and get fans that match and all that kind of stuff, and you go around all sorts of shops and look at alternatives. No, there's one light. There's one light. Only one who shines into the darkness, shines into the world, and there was no time that this Jesus, wasn't in the presence of the Father, with the Father, one with the Father. There is no time that Jesus did not exist and the Father did not exist. That is the light. And only that light is capable of redeeming and changing a world. And that's what's happening here. And that's what's being said to us tonight. The one who shines, the one who is the light, the darkness, a constant theme in John's Gospel. Darkness equals evil, sin, the realm of the devil. That darkness is not overcome by John the Baptist. It is come because I'm a human, says John. I can't do that. This is overcome by the one who was God, with God, always God. He's the light into darkness. So I have to say to the West, as you are ministering to the West in AEFI, don't tell me at any time Jesus is just one of all alternatives. Don't tell me that love means that we all get to heaven some way or other. Don't tell me that primary essential values about the nature of marriage or whatever don't count. Don't make up your own script. There is only one script. Jesus is the light. And that is why I believe this ministry has been so successful, and that's what Jonathan James has written in the book, and that's what his father proclaimed. No wonder God appeared to him in that vision with respect to the cross. And we know that happens on occasions, don't we? In Islam, evangelism and elsewhere, a total pulling out and change and transformation of worldview so that world will never be the same again. Okay, what's it mean? So we've done some theological reflection. I'm going to do some cultural reflection and tell some stories. So what does that mean? To shine the light of the truth. The one who was God, with God, is to be known as God. Firstly, it means, and this is why this book is such a central read. You see, in the comfort of the West, we often think evangelism works if I've got my black Bible here and standing on a street corner and just preach it. Well, you know better than that. It can work at times. The Bible is powerful. The Holy Spirit works with the Bible. But as Dr. G.D. James and his son says, it's absolutely important that we remind the West and each other that we need to contextualise the gospel message into the tribes and groups and nations we are working with. Now, contextualisation does not mean, as this book and both men point out, doesn't mean we change the gospel. The message does not change, but it means that we know for different cultures and different situations, there will be a variety of entry points where we bring the truth of that gospel in ways that they understand and they appreciate. And we illustrate that. And as Dr. Jonathan James says, the major part of that is we've got to listen to the recipients. We've got to hear what their worldview is. We have to understand how they think. What are the key issues that they're raising and understand? And we just don't go and preach at them. Mind you, they might only have 5 seconds, so you do that. But we need to do in the context, if we can, of listening, understanding, building relationships, and bringing the gospel into that context. Friends, this is not an archaic mission organisation wishing to stay alive. This is a mission organisation that is saying today missionary principles apply to evangelism here in Australia and around the world, and those who are effective as evangelists are first missionaries. Australia or elsewhere, they know their culture, they know their world, they know what they're going into as best they can, and they bring the gospel into that world. This book leads the way, because all the chapters are from practitioners and academics who do that. So, here I am at a Mind, Body, Spirit festival, which some of you would have heard before, and that is where people who are searching, spiritual but not religious, come. We have a stall at a Mind, Body, Spirit festival in Darling Harbour. We had it for many years. We have prayer chairs. We offer people water from Murray River, which is the purest rainwater in the world apparently, and that gets them in. And as they drink the water, we talk with them and share. A young man who I knew, who used to be a lawyer, told the Presbyterians that he was training with that there's no way, although he's been sent down to be part of this mission with myself and my friend, no way he was going to do that. That was contrary to the gospel. So while we were sitting down offering people water, because you imagine, if you're spiritual but not religious and you've been walking around a festival for about 3 hours, what are you going to want? Free rainwater. And it's Margaret River. Who are these guys? Wow. So, yeah, I'm not going to do that. No. I'm just going to stand here by the stall and read my Bible out loud. Well, we said, go to it, man. Good luck. Anyway, the next day I turned up and he said to me, Ross, I've been foolish. And I thought, well, yeah, I'd better keep my tongue tied here. He said, I have been sitting here with my Bible reading passages and having it open. I've had not one conversation. But over here on the tables, you guys can't cope with the conversations and the prayer and the drinking of water and people engaged. He said, I've been a fool. He said, what do I do now? I said, mate, you did the training, even though you said you had to do the training, you wouldn't, participate the way the training said. There's a spare chair, grab it and put your training into practice. 20 minutes later, here's this lovely water. Yes, dry. You like the water? The next one is praying for people. My gosh, Dr. James nails it. You've got to listen. You've got to hear. You've got to understand. You reach out in love. Not to listen to someone is not to respect them as a person. Just to keep preaching at them and not actually understanding where they're coming from and why is a lack of respect. Well, this is a respectful mission. It cares, it serves, it listens, and it brings the gospel into context. By the way, you think if that's biblical? Well, of course, that's what John 1 is doing. Why does John use the word logos? Well, logos, of course, is a Greek word, and it actually means, if you like, a desire, a reasoning, and even in a Jewish context, it had a sense of wisdom. So he doesn't start off by saying Jesus is with bang, 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 bang. He starts off by saying the Logos, the Word, was with the Father. There was no time the Logos wasn't not. And so from chapter 1, verse 1, he has all the Greeks and all the Jews listening and also discovering that what they thought was impersonal wisdom actually has been incarnated in a person and is part of the Godhead. Jesus doesn't shout from on high. He comes down, walks amongst us and tells parables and stories that people would relate to. Paul does it in Acts 17. You know, he doesn't open the Bible because they only had the Old Testament, and he's at Athens and he's with Stoic philosophers and Epicureans. They wouldn't know the Old Testament if they fell over it. So he doesn't give them a 101 course in the Old Testament in order to get the gospel to them. In chapter 1, in Acts 17, what he does, it tells the biblical framework, as Don Carson says, the biblical framework of the Old Testament, shows them how that is fulfilled in creation, and then brings them to Jesus, and in the process he quotes their Stoic poets to bring the link. I'm sorry, but the West doesn't get this really well. AEF does. And if this challenges you, read the book, because basically every chapter is about how that is done in different cultural situations. This book is revolutionary. A lot of people don't want to hear it. They just want to keep on preaching to deaf ears. So secondly, it really shows us the place of doing mission evangelism today. Secondly, what have I learned from Asia, and I get some of this in this book, is prayer. We think that we can be part of the mission and evangelism without the prayer we've been taught from Asia. The privilege, of course, is to go to South Korea, that are a model of this, and to watch that at 5, 6 a.m, 5 to 6 days a week, the people are gathered for prayer and all the pastors are there. I'm kind of grateful that I wasn't a pastor in South Korea, I must admit. 5 a.m, 6 a.m, you're all there. I've been in where God has blessed churches in South Korea, and there you are, they've got their own, and they're not doing this in a grandiose idea, they're just doing this in order that they can accommodate all that they have. You're in a motel room that is actually connected to the church. You know, it's 8 stories of car park or whatever, and you see, oh, TV set, that's great, I can watch TV while I'm waiting or, before I go to sleep. And when you watch the TV, it's all of the services that are taking place in the church. That's all you can see. And you tune in on a Wednesday night at about 8 o'clock, and in that church there are 12,000 people praying. And then 5 o'clock the next morning, they're back at it. And when you stand to preach in the pulpit, I'm not suggesting we necessarily do this in the West, it's translated in English as well as in Korean. There's a statement there from the senior pastor: any person who wishes to preach in this pulpit cannot rise to their feet unless they've, prior to their speaking, been involved in 3 hours of prayer. Now, I'm not suggesting we all do that. I mean, again, you've got to listen to be culturally sensitive. But what AEFI knows, and what we've seen here tonight, you cannot mission and do evangelism unless you're on your knees. Unless you're on your knees. And it's just not prayer that we learn from Asia, it's passion. When one of my faculty that we appointed, Myeon Chung, and she was Korean American, but she was lecturing in the Singapore Bible College, and great college, and she agreed to come and be part of my faculty. No faculty's ever done this to me before when I was at Morley. Yeah, I'm prepared to come, prepared to take a 5-year contract, but I need a clause, an exit clause. Exit clauses? We don't give exit clauses. What's the exit clause? The exit clause is this: if the walls fall with North Korea, and they may well do, I'm on tomorrow's plane. Where to? North Korea. That's passion. You have people serving overseas that just not model what it is to teach the gospel and to contextualise. They have given their lives to this. A life of prayer and passion. Also, when you look from my stories with respect to Asia, embrace servanthood. If we want to know what the world is saying to us about servanthood, look to Asia. I'm speaking at Yogyakarta, and I'm told I have to be at the church at 5:30 a.m. because that's when the singing starts, and I'll be speaking at 6. I'm saying, man, I'm not out of bed. I mean, who speaks at 6 o'clock in the morning? So we do the thing, we turn up, and great service, hundreds of people there in Yogyakarta, this particular church. And during the process, you're saying, well, why 5:30? Why 6? Oh, because by 8 o'clock, all the village markets are on. And the village markets, they all need help to set up stalls for people and to clean up and serve. So we meet at 5:30 or 6 so we can get back and be servants in the village market. And we're seeing wonderful conversions because we're here with people at that time. Is that exciting? Oh, good. Or what about shine the light? What about shine the light in the way we preach? It's a saying approach, Hindu, that Dr. J.D. James talks about, is that in the Hindu situation, they're not good on systematic theology. So you don't want to turn up and bring a systematic theology book and say, let's begin with God and then go with God and let's look at the person of Jesus and then over here I'll take you through this doctrine and that doctrine, and no. They learn much more from narrative. So in that context, your best way of introducing them to Jesus and sharing the gospel is, say, taking them through Mark's gospel or through John, because it's via the narrative they best learn. Now, there are other cultures, particularly Western, where they learn very well from a more analytical style approach. But as this book says and this ministry says, we listen, we hear, and we adapt our form of ministry according to those that we are working with. And then to shine means, we heard it from Dr. James, the sense of the light and the revelation. We take the battle we're in seriously. Western Christians don't take it seriously. We take it seriously. We're not just dealing with government and forces and whatever. We're dealing with the enemy, are we not? We're dealing with the enemy. I mean, do you know that in New South Wales at the moment, if you pray for someone and it's a consensual prayer and they're an adult, and you pray for someone who comes in and just asks for prayer, that they might have a suppression or transformation of their sexuality, that you've committed an offence. Or the Anti-Discrimination Board believes you have, and it'll be sent off to a tribunal. But if you're involved in deliverance ministry, and let me be very clear, I think deliverance ministry needs to be done very well by qualified people who know exactly what they're involved in. But if you do a deliverance ministry situation in that same context and it produces harm, well, let me tell you, morphine produces harm, any shake of the body produces harm, then you have committed a criminal offence of up to 5 years imprisonment. Well, tell this to the mob ministry in Asia. Lock us all up. And I have Western leaders and ministers saying to me, Ross, what's deliverance ministry? Never heard of that. What does that mean? Oh, well, let me tell you. Oh, now we understand that. Let me say to you, Ross, look, that is biblically authentic. Yes, biblically authentic. I agree with that. But unnecessary today. Says who? Asia doesn't. Jesus doesn't. And then to shine the light as we need to do, means that we do not compromise on the truth. And that's what, in particular, I love about ministry in Asia and the ministry of Dr. G.D. James in this memorial lecture. This is a loving, gracious, kind man. You can see this. This is a man who has a heart for Asia. You can see this. But this is a man who understands that the light that is shone needs to be the truth. It's not, well, what about this? Oh, we can do that. No, it's about the truth. It's about the truth, the gospel of the truth. That's the light that is shone. Friends, this is a memorial lecture for a leader of the Christian church, a man who spent so much time in Asia and in Australia, and it was my privilege to meet him. A man who was a great influencer, and through the ministry that he has given birth to, through the power of God, and continuing in his son and others, it's a ministry that continues to flourish. It's a ministry that is so effective in Asia, as we saw, and is producing results that we just love and want to contribute to. But also, let me say this very clearly, it is a ministry that has the capacity and is already doing so to shake up how the West understands ministry, commitment, truth and evangelism today. And the final comment I'll make about Dr. James is this memorial lecture. You know, many Christian ministries fold when the founder of that ministry is still alive and there's no clear or wanted succession to take place. I think one of the great honours for Dr. James is he didn't see this about himself. And AEFI was born by God in the Spirit of Christ to live beyond its founder. And that takes extraordinary wisdom and openness to how God is going to shape the ministry. So, GD James, support you, your son and fellowship, and it's a memorial lecture, but because it's got testimony and theological reflection and cultural observance, we can together clap the ministry of Dr. GD James and the ministry that follows at AEFI. Amen? I love amens. Amen? So be it. God bless you.